Hey everybody, welcome to episode 92 of the Is That Normal podcast, and today we're going to talk about vacations.
Yes, so summer is basically upon us, school's winding down, and that means a lot of families are looking to go on vacation, and there's I've got a vacation coming up pretty quick. I know lots of people do, and even if you aren't thinking about vacation right now, I strongly encourage you to at least plan some day trips for your family this summer, because as we try to influence our kids, vacations can be such a great opportunity to have deep conversations, to make bonds, to learn what your kids are excited about, to have times where you laugh, and just making these memories that are going to carry your kids into the future and make family an important part of their story. And so, Randall, what are some of your favorite childhood vacation memories?
Yeah, for us, we really didn't do a lot of large trips. We did take a few vacations, and we did a lot of day trips and things like that. The things that stand out to me was we just took a trip down into like Northwest Arkansas one year, and it was the first time we'd taken like a multiple day trip. And of all of the things I look back on, I can remember very specific things about that trip, and just that it was one of the few times we really went as a family and did some cool stuff and really had a great time. And then we did a lot of camping and spent a lot of time on the lake when I was a kid. And so those are great memories and things that I really, really enjoyed and have carried over into my adult life of I like to do a lot of those things, both because I enjoy them and because there's some nostalgia in them as well.
Wow, that's really good. I'm kind of same thing. We didn't take a lot of vacations when I was a kid. My dad took vacation to put up hay and work cattle. Like that was kind of where our life went. But there were a couple of big trips we took. One, we went to Washington, D.C. I'd won an award that I got to go receive in Washington, D.C., and my dad's boss made him take the week off. Said, you cannot come into work this week. You have to take your son to this thing. And so we drove across country to Washington, D.C., and we went through Amish country because my dad loved horses and loved that kind of culture. And so he had a really good time, even though that wasn't what he had originally thought he wanted to do. And so that was just nice. And, of all the things I went to Washington, D.C., probably the thing I remember the most is just times in the hotel room with my family, because we never had ever done that. We never went and stayed in a hotel together, and I don't know, it was just unique. And so I remember some of that. And then my mom took my sister and I to California to visit family when I think I was 11 when we did that. But we rode a Greyhound bus to get there. My mom, me at 11, alone. And that would make my sister like 5 or something like that. And oh man, that was an adventure. So yeah, I remember I think we were somewhere in Arizona and we had to trade buses, and when we got back on the bus, we're the only people who spoke English, and that was new. And I also remember how hot the bus bathroom was going across the desert. Like that was a deal. Anyway, so
great Greyhound bus adventures are their own category of adventures.
It was cool. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So today we're going to talk about some vacation hacks and things that to maybe help make it more easy and affordable for families to take vacations and make those lasting memories.
Well, welcome to the Is That Normal podcast, and we here at Is That Normal, the podcast, we love to encourage and resource and just invest in parents and concerned adults who are trying to raise teenagers and young adults to follow Jesus, which is one of the hardest things I've ever done, even though I've been doing it for 20 plus years now. And so, so today we're going to talk about vacations and give you some vacation hack sort of ideas and advice. And that may seem kind of like a little off the track of what we normally do. But again, we just really I believe that spending time, significant, uninterrupted, somewhat unplanned time with your young people is just huge as far as being voices in their life, learn about who they are, where they're at, and building that foundation we want for them as a family. And so Randall, actually, we were inspired to do this episode by another podcast that you follow. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Carlos Whitaker is a guy that you and I have both kind of followed for a long time, and he's kind of hard to pigeonhole into to one category because he's done a lot of things. He was a worship leader. He's a speaker and an author now. His family is somewhat famous because of his son when he was young. Was the star of a viral video that won a People's Choice Award when he learned that he wasn't a single lady. If you're not familiar with that video, Single Lady's Devastation. You should check that out. But
we'll link that as well.
Yeah. But yeah. So Carlos is just a really unique guy who's built up this huge social media following that really kind of documents their life. Both from the things he does with speaking and preaching and things like that, travels the world, but also just his daily family life. His wife they have their own little home, farm and garden, and his wife has her own account where she talks through, all of the growing their own food and things like that. So they're just really interesting to follow. And so one of the things that they do, they have several kids, and so they do a lot of traveling as a family. And so as part of his podcast that he does, he brought his wife on, and they had this whole conversation talking about how even they're on somewhat of a limited budget with the size of their family, of how they kind of plan to take some of these like really incredible vacation and trips that they do,
like out of the country,
overseas, and things like that. And his wife, is the one that really kind of developed the plan for how they could make this possible on kind of a shoestring budget. And so they really talk through that. And so it was just an interesting episode to listen to, and some unique ideas.
Yeah. And, maybe before we jump into that, just a couple things, because I really first became aware of him because of his worship leading.
Yeah.
But then quickly started following his blog that he had back then. And the thing that really stood out to me, and has always stood out to me about Carlos, is just how transparent he is and how real he is. And even though he's kind of this personality, like he just shares just how he's a very real person who's got really deeply flawed, like all humans are, and yet how Jesus impacts his life and has helped him lead his family through challenging things. Anyway, super cool guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really encourage you to check out other things he's doing. Where I follow him mostly now is Instagram, but he's also got this podcast, and so we'll put some links to all that out there for people if they want to check Carlos out more. So they did this whole episode on how they travel the world with their kids, with what Heather says is actually very little planning. So we'll kind of walk through that. But so as you listen to that, what were some of the things that stood out to you from their story?
Yeah, it really struck me. One of the big things that she talked about was that they some of the largest trips they've taken have been somewhat unplanned, as far as they didn't sit down and say, okay, this is where we're going to go and this is when we're going to do that. It was really determined by opportunities and great deals they got on flights, or things that kind of popped up at the last minute that they were just able to take advantage of. And that's one of the things that they really shared, was that being patient and flexible, so that when a really, really good deal comes along, you can take advantage of it.
Yeah, like one that she pointed out in the episode was because she's got notifications from the airline that they use, which one of their recommendations is to pick an airline if you're going to fly, so that you'll get deals and rack up mile points. And so she said, but she gets notifications if a deal comes up, and she got this notification like $500 to go to South Africa. And so she's like, hey Carlos, what do you think? And he's like, yeah. And like, so I mean, like they jumped on it, but it's kind of like there was a window of opportunity, and they had to be willing to be flexible to take that. So that was interesting. Yeah.
Which in addition to that, one of the things they talk about that even led into some of the decisions they've made as far as kind of what their home life looks like, homeschooling their kids, and just kind of the way that they live that allows them to have that a little bit of that flexibility to, take off on a international trip, maybe when a lot of families would have other things that would keep them from being able to do that, So,
now, and the other side of that, though, is like actually when they filmed or did the podcast, recorded, they were in Alaska.
Yeah.
But they talked about how they'd wanted to go there really maybe even for decades. but they'd had to wait for the right opportunity to arise, because Carlos had a speaking engagement, and they were able to tie this all together. And so sometimes you get these incredible, like, I wouldn't have thought to go there, and sometimes you have to really wait it out to go do other things.
One of the other things they do a lot is travel in the off season, and that's something even for us, my wife and I have found that we tend to do some is try to go to places on non-peak. We took a trip to Colorado a few years ago, and we got there. We went in April, but it was just as the ski season was ending, and so like the week we got there was kind of the end of that ski season. So most of the people were going home, and we got some really great deals on our lodging, and we still got to enjoy a lot of the things that the snow and things like that, but it was so much more affordable because of the time of year that we went. They talk about bringing your own food. They do a lot of kind of planning of how they're going to do meals while they're there, because as anybody that's traveled knows, that's one of your largest expenses, and you can probably talk to that a little bit, what that's like.
That's that is always one of the things that we do. And actually for our family, we have when we are on a trip, we usually try to keep to the one meal out a day rule. So so we'll plan to eat one meal at a restaurant, but the other two meals we're either going to eat where we're lodging at, or we're going to pack food and bring in. I will talk some more about that here in a little bit.
Some other things that they highlighted was, and I thought this was interesting, don't wait for your kids to grow up to take advantage of those opportunities to make memories while they're young. And I know for a lot of families, that tends to be a deterrent, that you think that's going to be much more difficult and harder to take your kids at those young ages. But I know even for me, those things that like that, those special moments, memories that get made at those young ages really tend to stick with you.
Well, and I know from personal experience, in the moment, especially for the parents, it might feel like, what have we done to ourselves, right? When everything's just imploding. But, when you look back, even if you remember the pain, which a lot of times you just remember the joy of what happened, but even if you remember the pain, you usually look back and laugh at that.
Yes.
And so it's made a memory that you have this common shared story as a family of like, remember that time?
Yes.
When we had 3 flat tires and the truck broke, and we were on the side of the road eating sandwiches, and it was like 122 degrees, and like, man, that was awesome.
Hey,
wasn't awesome then.
Yeah. But when you talk to in talking to your kids about their memories of vacations, those are the stories that they tell, and they tell them because they're great memories now, to look back on.
My kids are always like excited when we wind up in some sketchy situation. Like, that's the memory they want. Like, remember when we went to that sketchy gas station? Or remember the sketchy bathroom? Or remember the sketchy guy who stopped to help us out? Like, that's like their favorite vacation adjective.
Those are the best. So, and speaking of sketchy situations, one of the other things they say is to explore something new and try to be around different cultures, and that really is something that is a new experience and things that are going to be memorable, and sometimes maybe puts us a little bit outside of our comfort zone, but rarely do we find we regret that.
Yeah, that's good. One of the things they mentioned, he kind of said in that episode, like, that was something like, if we really want to come back and like say, hey, this is the main point of what we're saying, is like, it takes sacrifice to do this. And for them, they've kind of looked at like it's a sacrifice every day. Like, we make choices every day to do things differently so we can prepare for these kind of opportunities. If this is something we're committed to, this is what it costs us. And I thought that was really good. And we've felt that same tension in our house as well. Yeah.
And there's tons of free festivals and historical places, and a lot of times you can plan a trip around those, where you've got one event that is something that's going to not be super expensive, and then that maybe frees you up to do some other things. But if you've got you can plan around some of those really neat free events, and there's tons of those things out there.
And man, to listen to all the places they've went with their kids, that was incredible. They just listed off several, like, they went to London, they went to several places in Africa, and they said, actually, when they asked their kids, like, what's the favorite of all the places we've went, Uganda is like unanimously their vote. They've been to Paris, the Swiss Alps, Germany, Hong Kong, Canada, as well as numerous places in the United States that they've taken their kids. So
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's and I believe they went was it Thailand or somewhere here very very recently, because one of their son was adopted from there, and they had the opportunity to go back there too. So they have traveled all over the world. And again, we talk about Carlos being a speaker and author, but really, if you look at their lifestyle and how they live, that they're living on a budget just like most of us are. And so everything they're doing, they really have to plan.
I think it was the Paris trip, maybe they said that because of deals and just different stuff with the airlines that they were able to get. I think it cost them like $400 for the whole family fly round trip or something like that.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I really enjoyed their story. I thought it was really good and helpful and fun. And like I said, they're real transparent about the bumps and bobbles as well as the practical stuff that they give you. And I really saw a lot of things in common with my family. With us having 6 kids, the budget part of that going on vacation has always been a challenge. And we have a long time back, began trying to figure out ways to do things on an economy, but still get to go have fun, because we're committed to having fun, and we're committed to going on vacation and making memories. But we've had to be really creative in how we've approached that, as well as that, man, I totally identify with that sacrifice everyday thing. Because there's things that we choose to be on budget all the time for. So that we're able to save and create margins so we can do those kind of things on a regular basis. So I really appreciated it. Identified with it very much.
Yeah. So in your experience with your vacations and things like that, what are some of the hacks that you guys have found?
Yeah. So when you're talking to take 8 people anywhere, so the number one thing you have to figure out is like, how are we getting there? So transportation's a big deal, and we just almost never consider flying. Even though I know Carlos, they've worked that out. For us, we just the multiplication factor of our family has made that so we usually look for places that are drivable, as well as we've invested in a large vehicle so that we can take our whole family. So we've got a 9-seat Suburban. So there's 8 of us plus my mother-in-law. We have a mother-in-law seat. But again, when you multiply the number of people, then your transportation cost goes way down, because we're, this is whatever you're spending, divide that by 9, and our transportation value's low. So and we've actually done a few things where we've rented a large vehicle. Again, just looking for the economy of that multiplication factor. So we've done a lot of math to try to make things work on that. And then lodging is probably the next big deal for us, because I remember early on, as we got to like 3-4 kids, and we realized we don't fit in a typical hotel room. And at that time, there wasn't some of the options that there are now. We did start finding places that were suites that you could get some deals. And a lot of times the hotels that have suites also will offer you like a hot meal as a part. They're just kind of a different class of hotel, and so you'll either get a dinner or a hot breakfast, and so that took care of a food item in the cost. And so we did that for a while, but then we moved on to camper camping, and that has really been probably our best value as far as lodging. If you go to state parks anywhere in the country, like, you're usually spending 20 something bucks a night. And really well maintained, usually a beautiful facility, as well as usually close to some other really interesting things. And so we've gotten to do that in several places, staying in really unique, beautiful parts of we've done this in Florida several times, close to attractions, and yet we only spend like $120 on our lodging for all, 8, 9, 10 of us, however many are there. And, that's again multiplication. It's multiplying that value. But then we've also gotten into watching, and it doesn't always work out, but we've used Airbnb several times, and a lot of times I can get a whole house if I'm watching, and maybe not staying in like where it's walking distance to the attraction, but a few minutes drive, and getting it per night or for the whole week, what I can get just a hotel room cost. Well, it's comparable to hotel room cost. For one hotel, I get a whole house.
Yeah,
so.
we've actually gone to using Airbnbs quite a lot with vacations. We're actually going to an event this weekend, and I think there's going to be several couples staying, and we were able to rent an entire house. With a full kitchen and everything for a real comparable rate to what one single hotel room would be. And so, then when you split that between, 3 couples, the price money. Becomes really, really reasonable. And in a lot of cases, it's a much better setup and stuff anyway. So Airbnb's been a great option.
And that's a huge thing. And again, that started early on because that's kind of the next category is food. Because, man, if I take my family out to eat at McDonald's, it costs me like $100. And so so you can't just do that every meal. And so early on, we were looking for, even with those suites, they'd have a kitchenette. Looking for a place where I can make a meal. And so again, we have that one meal out a rule, a day rule. So we're trying to do something for breakfast and usually something for dinner and eat lunch out. And so having a kitchen. And all the appliances and all of those things, it makes a huge impact. I know we went to Disney World last summer, and that was, again, one of those things we'd want to do for a long time. Had to save and watch for the right moment, and all the right tumblers had to fall. We finally were able to do that. But we packed one of our meals every day, and they've got lockers you can rent. And so we just bring coolers, and we would bring sandwiches and all that stuff for us, put it in there. So we'd eat breakfast, go lock our cooler up, go do the park, eat lunch, and then we'd stop and we'd come back and we'd eat our locker meal, and then we were able to go till late in the evening that way and saved a ton of money. So that was great. A really cool way to do that. So and then another thing we've done. And these are usually for maybe some shorter trips, just a couple 3-day or even day trips, is find places where there's free stuff. Yeah. And when we were trying to research that, we found out that so many travel guides say St. Louis. For us, we're in Missouri. St. Louis is the #1 best city in the nation for free stuff for your family. I mean, the zoo's free, the science center's free. I mean, you can go. There's just so many things to do.
And both of those things are like you can spend full days there, and they're amazing.
Yeah. And so we do a lot of like day or couple day trips to St. Louis because that's a short drive for us. We've camped. We've pulled our camper and done it. We've stayed in Airbnbs there, and you can do a really, really cheap trip doing that way. So we just pay for a little bit of food and a little bit of lodging, and the rest we just enjoy free stuff. So it's pretty cool. And we've already kind of talked about, we vacation out of season a lot because we, like the Whitakers, we homeschool, and so that's given us flexibility for that. And then we've also, something we think about a lot is like rhythms and routines, because we can't do a Disney World trip every year. I mean, we told some of those kids, this may be the only time in your whole life, kind of thing. But even big trips, like going out of state trips, we can't probably do that every year. So we kind of do some shorter, smaller, cheaper trips, and then every other year try to maybe take a bigger trip. And so we've just kind of created that rhythm of saving, but it also helps build expectation, because the kids know like this year we're just gonna go down to Table Rock Lake and take a week and camp and do a lot of free stuff and just enjoy ourselves and relax. That's gonna not cost us a lot of money, but then that saves us. Maybe next year we can go something just a little bit further away. And so we kind of do those rhythms and expectations. And then this is probably the best advice I'm going to give everybody. Always bring like one of those ice cream buckets and baby wipes. Because really, like kind of another one of our travel rules are, we know the trip's going to be okay after the one person who's going to puke on that leg of the trip is puked, and then we're done with that.
We're ready to go,
and then we can just go the rest of the way. So
yes, that is great advice. So in all of that, it's a lot of work to plan for those, and a little chaos to go with it.
And so like Heather says, they don't plan well. You may not plan in the same way other people are planning, but there's a lot of planning to do what we're doing.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Yeah. So, is it worth it?
Oh man, totally. We've bonded. We've got the change my spark plugs and Piggly Wiggly stories. We laugh, and we just it creates this common story with your kids that will last their whole life. So our kids love sharing those stories with others, especially the ones where make me look really, really. unintelligent, and but it's brought us closer, and again, it's created the expectation of fun. Our kids know that we value fun and adventure, and that's a big deal to them. So it's totally worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wrap up today, our 2 takeaways. The first is to make a vacation plan, and even if it's somewhere local, maybe a day trip. There's the cool thing about where we live in this area of Missouri. There's a ton of great day trips that can be done for really inexpensively. So,
lots of state parks, lots of lakes,
rivers,
lots of all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah.
So start planning something like that for your family. And the second is to share some of your stories. We love great vacation and great vacation disaster stories.
Yes, we're all in. Please
both are
share
equally
those.
entertaining.
Be abnormal.